Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadoe at Night. This is Tuesday, July the 8th, 2025. On the show tonight, 3 vaccine injured people. We have Michelle. You've met her before. Michelle Wharton is going to join again tonight. Julie and a woman named Natalie. Now, one of the guests tonight wants to remain anonymous. She is using a different name than her real name, and you will not see her face on camera. Normally, I would not allow this, as you guys know. But because we have 2 other people on camera tonight who know this person and can vouch for this person, I'm letting it go. Because these stories need to be told. And more importantly, these stories need to be heard. Now, global news. Last week released a 3-part series on vaccine injuries and VISP, the vaccine injury support program that was put up by Justin Trudeau, I believe it was in November or December of 2020, which has helped maybe 10 people so far. I think my guests tonight, one of them at least, will probably have the answer for that. And all of the hoops that people have to go through, all of the caseworkers, all of the... Have you ever spent time on the phone waiting on hold with a bank or with your cable company, cell phone company? You can be on there for 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes, trying to straighten something out. Imagine doing that every day for the last 3 years. And then in the end, being turned down. And then appealing and going through the same process again and again and again. And that's only one of the nightmares our guests tonight have had to endure these past few years. So we're going to get to that in just a second. And also, there's a lot of outrage over this joint memo that came out a couple of days ago from the Department of Justice in the United States and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that says Jeffrey Epstein died of suicide, and that's all there is to it. And when questioned today in the White House, Donald Trump was sitting there with Pam Bondi, the Attorney General down there. When questioned today by a reporter, Trump said, with all this stuff going on, you want to talk about this scumbag? There is all kinds of fallout going on down there, and we're going to get to the bottom of that a little bit later on in the show, probably the extension on ShadoeDavis.com. For those of you who are not members, I implore you to go there, sign up, and get all of the extra content, and you don't have to watch it live, my friends. Yes, of course you can. You can become an all-access Nighthawk. Join the community, the Shadoe at Night community on Telegram, and become one of the folks that chit-chats about the content that we cover in the after hours part of the program. Or you can just watch it at your leisure tomorrow, the next day. You can watch it on the weekend. You can binge and go ahead and do all of that stuff all in one place, ShadoeDavis.com. Hopefully we'll see you there as an all access member very, very, very soon. Let's say some hellos. Eddie, how are you? What's going on? John is watching on YouTube tonight. John says, guess I'm watching from here. Is one of the platforms not working tonight? Usually everything's working fine. Tonight we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch, we're on X, we're on Rumble, and we're on Telegram, and of course the website, ShadoeDavis.com. Hello, Ellen, watching on Vancouver Island. Diane is watching from Regina tonight. Hello, Robert, how you doing? Everybody is upset about this Epstein cover-up. Diane is watching. Frank is watching from Huntsville. Lucette in St. Jean-Baptiste. Barb is watching tonight. Hello, Carol and Sharon watching from somewhere in Ontario. And Linda's watching in Madoc, Ontario. Over on Rumble, Esky Dogs, Why Pasco, World Peace, Mo, you know. Patricia's watching. Robin and Eva, Sapphire Blue, Midnight Oil. Welcome to the show, you guys. Thank you for all the amazing Rumble rants that we've been getting over on the Rumble site. I want to welcome you all to the show. And don't forget, you guys, like and share. Get this out there to as many people as you possibly can. We'll come back with our guests in just a second. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Michelle Wharton, you have met before. Welcome back to the show, Michelle. Thank you for coming on. Julie, hello. Your mic is muted, just so you're aware. If you start speaking, we won't be able to hear you. And a woman called Natalie. Now, Michelle, because I've spoken to you before, let's start with you. What is your situation like today? I think the last time we spoke to you was probably 4 or 5 months ago now. How are you doing today?
Yeah, correct. Yes, Shadoe. So when we last spoke in November, I had recently returned back from the United States. And so, short synopsis, I was unable to get any care in Canada. And that's a pretty common theme for all of us here on the panel today. Substantial medical gaslighting, lack of acknowledgement, vaccine injuries don't exist. And so I returned back again to the United States, this time to Utah, to a specialty clinic, and I saw an immunologist and neurologist, and they confirmed severe vaccine injury, and I have an incredible portfolio now of both neurological and immune conditions. And at that time, they recommended IVIG, which is a immune therapy, and that was in August of last year. And so I finally was approved May of this year for a provisional 3-month trial of IVIG. And those that have been vaccine injured, that have had early interventions, which is generally the common need for all of us to firstly just have not the diseases and conditions that we have progressed rapidly. In my case, it's vision loss. I now have loss of feeling from my elbows to my fingertips, my knees to my toes, significant electric shocks, hands, feet, brain, bone pain, joint pain, difficulties breathing, pulmonary dysfunction. And here I am today. And I was once a very healthy, thriving healthcare professional with no evidence of disease and no previous health conditions. And so me becoming approved for that IVIG involved me attempting to communicate with our Minister of Health, our Premier. My new MLA, which was elected in the fall, actually handed my entire file that was started from our previous MLA.
Who is your new MLA, Michelle?
Jordan Keeley.
Jordan Keeley.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was so sick, Shadoe, in November. I could not get to his office, and he came to my house, and he sat here with me for about an hour, and he heard my story, and he took my medical records, which then at that time, I think the last time we spoke, I had about 6 rejection letters from specialists in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. I have 14 now. Yeah.
So you still haven't been acknowledged by any physicians in Canada, correct?
One. And that was just in May. One neurologist that has just acknowledged that I have, it's a big, long, lengthy statement, vaccine-induced, immune-mediated small fiber neuropathy. So essentially my nerves in my peripheral area are dead and or dying. And so the IVIG that I'm receiving is attempting to restore my immune system in hopes of stabilizing my condition. And unfortunately, I have not had the best results with those 2 treatments. So we're really just praying that it's not too late is really what it is coming down to, Shadoe. Yeah. And I'm 46 years old, and I was very healthy and have 2 small children. So it's not the life I expected when I was trying to protect the public.
Okay. Let's say hello to Julie. Julie, I have not met you before now. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Julie, can you tell us a bit about what's happened to you?
Yeah, so for me, things kind of all started after the 2nd dose of the vaccine in June of 2021. So I started experiencing numbness, tingling, and pain from my knees down. It went away after approximately 4 months. And I took a 3rd dose in December of 2021. Unfortunately, my symptoms came right back within 5 days, except this time, instead of just working its way from the bottom of my feet to my knees down, it ended up over the course of 3 weeks working its way from the bottom of my feet to my waist down, and I also began experiencing cardiac symptoms as well. So I was only 24 years old when this all started. and am 28 now, and have since formally been diagnosed also in Utah, United States, small fiber neuropathy, post-orthostatic tachycardia.
Natalie, can you turn your microphone off, please? I think we're getting some kind of a noise from over there. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we can hear everything that you guys are saying. So, Julie, please continue. You got diagnosed in the United States, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you go back to that part?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in the United States, in Utah, the same clinic that Michelle went to, with small fiber neuropathy. So they ran the biopsies that Canada refused to run for me, despite me telling them I was almost certain that I had small fiber neuropathy based off of the online support groups and others who had the same diagnosis and the same symptoms that I did. So I paid out of pocket in the United States in Utah for the biopsies, which came back positive. So we confirmed that I do have small fiber neuropathy, in addition to post-orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, so POTS for short. So for me, that means that my heart rate can go anywhere from like 160 to 180, barely doing anything. Whereas before all this, I used to be a recreational athlete. So I played volleyball multiple times a week for hours at a time. And that's something that I can no longer do. In addition to that, I was also diagnosed with mitochondrial dysfunction, which essentially means that my body doesn't make energy anymore. So I can get very tired very quickly.
How have you, aside from the physical, how have you, I don't like to use the word suffered, but it's the only one that I can think of right now. How have you suffered in other ways through family, friends, work, etc.?
Yeah, so in addition to not being able to play sports anymore, which used to be my entire life, things at work have changed extremely drastically. So I used to be able to work full time between two jobs. I've since no longer am able to do one of those jobs, since I can't keep up with the workload anymore. So I used to work at a local college, and I used to work with students who had disabilities doing note taking and testing accommodations. But because my brain doesn't work at the same speed that it used to, likely due to what has been diagnosed as microclotting from my blood work in the US. And so I'm no longer able to do that job. So I do still work 2 days a week at a local museum, and my staff and coworkers there, in addition to my family and some friends, have been very supportive of me. So luckily, I still have been able to keep up that. But I've certainly lost a lot, and mentally, it's taken a huge toll.
I can't even imagine. I mean, you've had to give up so many things that you loved in your life.
At 24 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let's bring Natalie in. Natalie, please turn your microphone on.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, yeah, let's just say we're hanging in there. We're doing our best to hang in there.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on tonight. We understand your need for anonymity, and I want to get to each of your situations with the VISP program, the Vaccine Injury Support Program, and where you guys are standing. Natalie, what is your story? What's happened to you?
Yeah, so what happened to me was I worked in a very high energy, stressful job. I did work for one of the provinces for the government. And I was a very dedicated employee. I was a hardworking individual, really honest, very, very seldom took sick days unless needed, so on and so forth. I took one of the Pfizer vaccines. It was very heavily encouraged and pushed. I did take it before the mandate occurred. because I had a lot of contact with a lot of people during the course of my work. After I took it, I started to experience like whirling issues on my lower legs, which then progressed to tingling issues on my hands and feet, which then progressed to, by about 2 to 3 weeks in, hearing damage. Like I can hear background sounds like whirling and all kinds of problematic sounds in my hearing. So it's very difficult for me to concentrate on things. It's very difficult for me to focus on different things. I have stiffness in my hands. So I have issues like even in terms of like trying to comb my hair, personal grooming issues, even standing. Like I cannot stand if I'm trying to talk to someone and you end up just, you end up seeing someone and you're standing, you have to go sit down because you have extensive pain, like from the soles of the feet into the palms of the hands, and stiffness in terms of doing any kind of issues that require like your fingers and so on and so forth. At one point, shortly after the one vaccine that I did have, I couldn't even basically get off the couch. I basically was close to, I did think as many of the other people have shared, I was just didn't even know if you could make it. It was that bad. So anyway, there was a big kerfuffle in terms of work because as you shared this with people, their basic hope was for you to get the second vaccine at that time. Like it was just like it was completely blocked out what you were experiencing and the physical symptoms you were experiencing. You just had kind of this wave of just push that aside and just take this, even from the work site, from various sources, they just wanted you to take another vaccine sort of thing. So you just have this really skewed, distorted sense of kind of what's going on here.
Natalie, what kind of pressure were you put under? Because you mentioned that you worked for a provincial government. Like what sort of pressure was there? Not just from management, but from your coworkers also.
Yeah, from coworkers, we had Zoom meetings such as we're having right here, and people would be encouraged to share what their status was. And then they had accolades, like if they had the second one or, where they were at with that. It was like, it was really...
What do you mean, like you'd get a gold star or something?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And it did come down from like a supervisorial level, managerial level, union level, from many different various avenues. Even from the people that you were serving, they reciprocated that they wanted you to be vaccinated before you had interaction with them as well. So it came from many different avenues. So basically here in Canada, like I haven't gone and traveled to the United States. I'm unable to work. I did try to go back to work. I had muscle twitching. I had my hands and my feet were tingling. I had hearing issues and extreme fatigue. Like you basically can't even function. The fatigue is so severe. And so from that point on, like you then enter into like this acrimonious situation. Like, what do you do now? Because you've been stable and you've been a person that's working all these, years. And through no fault of your own, then you're thrust into this position where you have to then be in this position to advocate for yourself, which I never thought I should, need to be in this position. And that's kind of where it's been. So I've been actually, I counted it up before the show. I've been to 24 doctors in Canada, and I have not been to the United States. I haven't had, I don't know if it's worth financially going to the United States, but some of the feedback I've had from emergency doctors, neurologists, I've been to a rheumatologist, I've been to internal medical specialists. Basically, I have had it, quote unquote, a vaccine would not do that, those kinds of symptoms. It wouldn't cause that type of a symptom.
You mean like not an experimental, never before tried formula that
anxiety would though.
Yeah, and they do want you to really look. And I've never had mental health issues. I'm right now. I am 55 years old. I have no mental health history. However, they do want to refer you, and they have referred me to 3 psychiatrists, which I've met with, and there are no mental health issues. I keep just.
Natalie, what kinds of questions would I'm sorry to interrupt you. What kinds of questions would a psychiatrist ask you in regards to what you're going through physically right now? Like something about your mother, your father?
Yeah, actually, they have asked me about my family history. And I was raised by a single mother, but that has no implications at all. And
Of course not.
and the temporal connection to when I was vaccinated to when I had tingling in my hands and my feet and hearing damage is unmistakable. There's no question. It's 100% unmistakable. And like I've had
How many times have you ever heard the expression that correlation does not equal causation?
Yeah. Well.
Right. And I'm not sitting here telling you that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm asking how many times have you heard that? Because I mean, like, what a coincidence. And I started feeling these things.
Far too many to count, Shadoe. For all.
And so this is from a person that worked 8 hours in a high energy job, and I would be able to, recreationally, I could bike 2 hours in the river valley and walk and hike from 2 to 4 hours. And I was a very active person, and I really enjoy nature and all of that. And I'm unable to do those things. I can't grasp a handlebar on a bike like I could. I can't ride the bike. I can't walk. I can't stand. I'm always looking for a place where I can sit down. If I try to hike, or if I go to a grocery store, even if I go grocery shopping, I'm scoping out where the next place is where I can sit down. So this is the implications to my life. And it's very devastating. I can't even impress upon the devastation that this has caused. So.
Michelle, you were saying, before we went on, this is the first time that all three of you have actually been together outside of regular meetings.
Yeah, so Julie and I met, incidentally, her and I both visited the same facility in Utah, and we didn't know. And so I was there in August and Julie was there in October, I believe. Is that right, Julie?
Yeah.
And so we were connected through Brianne Dressen. So Brianne Dressen is a co-founder for React 19, and Julie actually has been their support group facilitator for React 19 for 2 years now. We didn't have an organization in Canada that mirrored what React 19 has offered. And so Julie and I got talking, and CanRise 19 came to fruition. And so Julie and I had started formal support groups, and our first intake was in February. And we ran 2 days a week in February for 10 weeks. And we just started our second intake of another 10-week session. And so we meet weekly via Zoom, but this is the first time that the three of us have been together outside of our emotional support groups, which are confidential, individuals that contribute sign confidentiality agreements. We're not here to offer medical advice, but we are here to share our stories. And, we're developing a patient resource list, a provider list, and we are currently in the nonprofit registration phase where we will be building a medical care fund similar to that of React 19. So where Canada's missing the mark and people like myself are mortgaging their houses or selling their businesses to pay for medical care, Julie and I are hoping that we can kind of ease that burden for vaccine injured. So we're pretty close to being registered as a nonprofit.
We had Anita Krishna on the show last night. She's a former director with Global News in Vancouver. She was with them, I'm going to say overall, probably about 20 years. And she was talking about the vaccine injury special series that they put together last week. And while she was saying that's great, finally, the left-wing corporate media is actually willing to discuss this. Mm-hmm. She said, I still brush up against the narrative, two narratives, small group of people and rare. Well, this is a rare occurrence. This doesn't happen at all.
There's literature that I think it's Frazen is the peer-reviewed paper that was published, and it's referencing 1 in 800 people are vaccine injured. So that translates to, was it 22 million people, Julie? Is that what it translates to globally? 1 in 800. So what they consider is rare or few. And that is, I was interviewed for that global 3-part series. None of my conversations with Carolyn were part of the article or whatnot. But this comment that they keep repeating on rare and few is really bothersome because they are entirely diminishing the impact that this has had on individuals. And what I would speak to even more for Natalie and Julie and myself is we don't look sick. We're sick. So that's incredibly deceiving. You can't see all neurological conditions. You can't see that I can't see properly, that I have 40% peripheral vision loss in both my eyes, that I can't feel my hands and feet anymore. I'd make a lousy hygienist right now, let me tell you.
You
Lousy.
can't feel your hands.
Can't feel my hands and I can't see properly. You can't see immune conditions. You can't see POTS. You know, we wear these smiles on our faces because we have to choose to face every day as best we can. And
Let me back you up for a second. POTS.
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with that condition.
It's posterior orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So essentially, when you change positions from laying to sitting, sitting to standing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your respiration doesn't register that you've changed positions. And so it's a dysregulation of all autonomic regulatory systems in your body. And so for Julie, for example, like Julie and I, we attended the Follow the Silence documentary in Texas together. It's the first time we met in person. I sat with Julie at a table and her heart rate was 130 beats per minute, sitting there. My heart rate has gone from like 60 to 198 beats per minute from sitting to standing. And so there's complete dysregulation of your autonomic nervous system. But POTS is so much more. I mean, there's digestive issues, there's heart-related issues, there's breathing, there's cardiac, anything that the vagus nerve innervates, which is the largest nerve that runs through our system, it's entirely dysregulating. And so any function that you considered seamless, these things that our bodies do on a day-to-day basis, it's entirely disruptive and it's debilitating. It's absolutely debilitating. Some people don't sweat. Like I completely overheat. The worst thing in the world for me is heat. My neuropathy is worse. My POTS symptoms are worse. I have POTS as well. It's devastating. Yeah. And the correlation between the climb and POTS, mast cell activation disease, connective tissue disorders, autoimmune conditions, and neuropathy since the COVID vaccine is extraordinary. Like you can't ignore that. It's
How
not
many people, Michelle, are in the Can Rise 19 group?
Well, we're reaching, I think, close to 700 right now on Facebook. Our support groups, Julie, how many would you say?
Support groups are probably around 25 people registered right now. And then we do have an email list of approximately 100 people now.
Yeah. And we started formally, I guess, in December. Hey, Julie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have only vaccine injured people into the group, or are you bringing in family members as well? Because I can imagine, and Michelle, I heard your story, like as you say, back in November. You know, your husband is a guy who's stepped up big time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's stepped up and taken care of you and the kids and.
Yeah, Julie's best to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have had a couple of people so far who have reached out that are family members of individuals who are vaccine injured, and we certainly respond to them and try to support them the best that we can as well. Right now, we are also offering in partnership with React 19. So like Michelle mentioned, I am the support group coordinator for React 19 as well as the co-founder of Can Rise 19. And so in February, we launched the first round of support groups for family members of individuals who acknowledge that they are vaccine injured. So we ran that first group in February, and we are looking to start the second round of groups for loved ones and caregivers. So that can include anybody from parents to siblings to children of individuals who are vaccine injured. That
let me ask you, Julie,
together.
What is the most common thing that family members of vaccine injured say?
So to be honest, because I am vaccine injured myself, I am not one of the facilitators of the support group for family members. We do try to have individuals who are family members as opposed to individuals who are vaccine injured.
That's probably a good idea, but I'm just asking only because, you know, I mean, there's the vaccine injured and then there's the people who support them. And, you know, you've got family, we've all got family of some kind or close friends. What kinds of things did they say to you? Like, how did they relate to you today as opposed to before all of this happened?
Yeah, so I would say like a lot of it is just, I can speak for like my parents who have attended every single appointment with me, and to them, it's just like a high degree of frustration and hearing doctor after doctor after doctor tell their loved one that they're crazy, that they're stupid, that they're incompetent, and that vaccines don't do such a thing like that. And so you should stop wasting our time. And so for my family, I know that it's hearing those things over and over and over that get to them. And you shouldn't have to hear your 24-year-old kid say things like, I don't want to live like this anymore.
I've spoken to other vaccine injured people who have been approached seriously by a doctor who said, there's this thing in Canada called MAID. Have any of you guys been approached in that way?
I was in the emergency room in Edmonton, and I had the head of the Parkinson's department at U of A hospital, and my mom was there. And she was insinuating that my injuries were based on childhood trauma and that this must be really hard for me and that there's no solutions and that there are options that could ease my discomfort. And she didn't come right out and say it, but the look on my mom's face was just, she was absolutely appalled. And I think for family members, they just feel like they just want so desperately to help you and they just can't do anything. And so I know for my mom, she feels that way. Sorry. It's hard.
I remember having your mom on the show a few months ago. She's a great lady.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a veil of cognitive dissonance or confirmation bias amongst the medical community in this country when because you and Julie have both been down to the United States. You've been diagnosed down there. You've been treated down there. The doctors down there seem far more willing to look at all of the possibilities. But up here, they're still closed off.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, I mean, it's multifactorial. Part of it is I do truly believe that some physicians still believe that these vaccines save lives and that vaccine injuries don't exist. Part of it, I believe, is that they swore an oath to do no harm, and they are doing harm. And so, ignoring the fact that we exist doesn't excuse you from the fact that you should be held accountable. You're a medical provider.
So you're suggesting that they just put it completely out of their brain so they can sleep at night?
I do. I think it's very, there is a very large population that do still believe that this is the right answer. And then there's those that I think that they just have disregarded it entirely. And I get to choose that every day as I was a healthcare professional. And my responsibility was to protect the public. That's my primary responsibility. And so for me not to speak publicly about my vaccine injury, I'm not protecting the public. And I won't be registered. Within the next few days, I'll be retracting my license. And I'm really actually looking forward to that because I won't have a regulatory body over my head. I remember you telling your story about the struggle to get the shot. It was so difficult. And so when Natalie discusses, that pressure, that was me sitting at a board table with my peers. And, it was very obvious that I wasn't vaccinated and me voicing my concerns on these mandates in British Columbia. And that ultimately was what led me to vaccinate. I had patients emailing my practice asking me for my vaccine status before they confirmed their appointments. And my staff, I'm not disclosing that information.
And you live in a small community, so
that's
definitely
right.
People would know, and they'd tell their friends and so on and so on.
That's right. So I do think there's it's free healthcare in Canada. The United States has private care, so maybe perhaps there's a bit of difference in that and what they can say and not say. And you can choose to go to a private clinic, which is what Julie and I did. We can't do that here. But I've had conversations, Shadoe. I was in the emergency room Christmas Eve, and we actually had a resident here, and the one doctor that he was practicing under, they both openly talked to me about vaccine injuries, but they both openly told me that they could never say that in public. Yeah.
What would happen to them? They'd be reprimanded by their board.
Well, like Dr. Hoff, right? Like Charles Hoff, same thing. I forget.
He's been vindicated, by the way, which is great news. He came on the show a couple of months ago, and we talked about that, which was fantastic.
But your license is threatened. Your livelihood is threatened. And I know I'm walking away from a 20-year career, and it's difficult. But can you sleep at night? I could never sleep at night. I couldn't even say it if I didn't say it now.
Natalie, what about you? You took the one jab.
Yeah.
And were you being forced into taking another, even though you had symptoms already after just the one? You were still.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, actually, what happened was it was so bad. I'll be honest with you. I was, if I had the means, it was so bad. I was considering suicide. And like I say, I have no history of this at all, like zero.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was no way I could. I actually thought I could die if I took another one. So I knew that I couldn't take another one. And I just had to deal with whatever the consequences were of not taking another one. And like I was getting from our province, I was getting text messages to sign up to the second one. So I was phoning into our provincial health lines, reporting to them, trying to find a doctor, reporting to what my symptoms were to the provincial health lines that are supposed to help you. And they were texting back to me, and they actually sent a letter to me to get the second one. And they were offering, I think it was $100 to people to like incentives to get groceries or something. I don't know what it was, but people had incentives to get it. But I knew at that point that it was so insane and fanatical, like my life at that point, at the height of this, that like I feel like I've lost 2 or 3 years of my life. Like this has been so insane and fanatical that I my thinking isn't even in the same. Like it's so bad. So like I guess at that time I knew like everything in my life crumbled, like my work, my family relationships, like everything that was solid just crumbled.
And did it crumble because people didn't believe you, or?
Yeah, it's still like it's still even to this point, like people don't believe that that this could happen. Like and it's really what really gets me at the crux is that some people still believe it was worth it, even though they are relatively aware of injuries. They still believe on the pendulum that it was worth it for everybody to get vaccinated. And if somebody got hurt or was paralyzed or was blinded, it was still worth it if like 1 million people were saved from dying from COVID. They still.
What's interesting about this whole thing? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what's interesting about this whole thing is they have no way to prove a negative, right? How can they sit there and say this formula saved millions of lives? How can you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can't. Well, models show. What models?
Mm-hmm.
But when all of the other science comes out,
Mm-hmm.
they deny it and they call it crazy and they call it conspiratorial. Julie, you took 3 of these. Did you believe at the time that they were actually helping, or was that pressure?
No, Julie.
It's okay. You know what? We're not judging here because you guys are speaking out, and that's something that we absolutely appreciate and encourage.
Yeah, so for me, I thought that I was protecting people that I cared about and whom I thought at the time cared about me. I have since learned in some cases that was not necessarily the truth. And so in my case, after I reacted to the second dose, I was told that I needed to take a third dose in order to be able to see people that I cared about.
Who told you that?
An individual that I was friends with and their family.
So they were putting conditions on your friendship at that point. They were saying, well, you have to take the third shot or you're not going to be able to come over for Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. And so for me, I wanted to have my life go back to normal, and I wanted to graduate with my peers. Those were the 2 things that I wanted most when COVID was over. And so I thought that continuing to take the vaccines would allow me to return to that normal life. And unfortunately, that's not what happens, and my life will never be the same again.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you were deceived that way. By society, by government, by medical professionals, by media.
Yeah.
Just, it makes me sad that this has happened. And yet you've managed now to not only continue on with this new life of yours, but you're working towards helping others as well with your group, Can Rise 19. I think that's absolutely incredible and commendable.
No, thank you for that. I definitely appreciate it. And I mean, I try to focus on the good things that came out of this. And, you know, meeting Michelle, who has turned into one of my best friends, and meeting the people from React 19 who have truly become a family to me in all of this. And that's what I told my doctor from Utah when we had a conversation about how my life was never going to be the same. That's how I flipped it. I said, "You're absolutely right. My life is never going to be the same, because now I may have lost a couple people that I thought were my friends, but I've gained so many more that are truly my friends, and I can pick up the phone and I can text, or I can call them, or I can jump on a plane at any point in time. And those are the people that are going to be there for me no matter what."
Isn't that amazing? You know, we've all been down that same kind of journey. It doesn't necessarily have to do with vaccine injury. You know, I've lost people along the way these past 5 years, but I've gained so much more in my life. And as you're right, you know, Julie, when you said, I thought were my friends, people I thought were my friends, they never were. If they were going to turn their back on you based upon some experimental formula.
Conditions, right?
You know? Natalie, what's your situation like now with VISP?
VISP. Well, just let me. I didn't say.
I'm
that.
sorry. Yeah, you know what? You got to finish what you were talking about before.
Yeah, no,
I interrupted you.
I'll let you know the VISP. I was finally, there was a doctor that did an MRI here in Canada, and I had been diagnosed with 21 lesions of my brain, and it was caused by microclotting in my brain, and the doctor has said that there could be other organs that have been affected by microclotting as well.
Was that probably the spike protein crossing the blood-brain barrier?
Well, I don't think anybody wants to expound on it from they just tell you that, but they don't really make any connections. It's just kind of in isolation. So they did tell me that came up on the MRI.
Right.
So the VISP, so what happened was I would like to say that in the process of even coming to the beginning stages of VISP, you would have to have a medical professional that's open to even like listening or being aware or wanting to kind of go into this with you. And that's not an easy situation here in Canada, is my opinion, because I don't believe that there's hardly any that would. That's my opinion, but I did find someone that was interested and did want to. And the other piece to this in Canada, and it's not about the money or whatever, but all of the reports or anything that you want to have when you want to advocate or explain the situation, if you have a medical doctor, you're going to be paying out of pocket. So you're already not able to work. And then second to that is that you're going to be paying out of pocket to any of the medical professionals for any of the reports that they will be writing on your behalf.
How much do these reports cost?
Somewhere in my experience, it was because the person I found is a beautiful person. She's a lovely individual. She reduced her what would necessarily be the fee because she has a heart and she's an empathic individual, but hers was 60 and it could be up to 200, but I don't know, might be more, but that's what my experience was so it would be up to $200 for a report. So if put that into play of you losing your job, you've lost your health care, your Blue Cross benefits, all of those kinds of things that you're having to pay that out of pocket for in Canada, plus paying for advocacy for any medical reports that you are required for the VISP program or anything else. So let's just put that into the backdrop of the whole discussion as well. So in my experience, what had happened was I was very fortunate and blessed that I did find somebody that was willing to write the other piece, the doctor piece. I wrote my piece of the report. She wrote her piece. And I submitted this in June 6th of 2024 to the federal government. And I received a response from them, and they responded back to me. Thank you very much for submitting your application to the VISP program. We've received the application. Once a case manager has been assigned, they'll review the eligibility of your claim. For your reference, here's a link for frequently asked questions. We're currently processing a high volume of claims, but once your application has been assigned, a case manager will contact you. We appreciate your patience. So that was the email I received June 6th. So I submitted it.
June 6th, 2024. So this is over a year now.
Yeah. So from that point on, I haven't heard back from them.
You know, one good thing this global series exposed was that this VISP program is a joke. And the people who were working there were talking about drinking days and ping pong tournaments. And, you know, nobody gets called back. They send out form emails, and they're hoping for people to go away.
They make it as difficult as possible so you stop applying and you stop contributing.
Where are you at with this, Michelle?
So I had my claims submitted, and the same as Natalie, I was very fortunate. I have a private physician in Alberta who I realized when the first doctor I saw here asked if I was in menopause as a result of my neurological symptoms, I was in trouble in British Columbia. So I was very grateful that a friend connected me with a physician in Alberta, and he signed my claim form in April of 2023. And by the time my claim was going through the medical panel review, so there's 5 to 6 stages of the program. And so we had reached the medical panel review, and they had over 5,000 documents that they had to redact beforehand. And this is from, similar to Natalie, a substantial amount of rejection letters and whatnot. I was rejected in October of 2024. So 18 months rejected, 4 case managers. So you're trying to reiterate yourself and your story. I had 2 exceptional case managers at the very end. And my second last case manager actually allowed me to write a letter that she was going to read on my behalf to the medical panel. Whether that happened, I don't know. So I was rejected in October of 2024, and 2 of the 3 medical panel experts, which I really had asked Carolyn this, how did they vet these medical panel experts? Because the same 3 they had were the same 3 I had, and my 3 confirmed vaccine injury, causal, temporal. Their 2-3 medical panel, 2 of 3 said that there was a clear temporal relationship, but they didn't feel like my conditions were from the vaccine.
Are these people, these case managers, are they medical professionals or just?
No, they're not. No.
Who are they? Do we know?
I don't know. I mean, from the sounds of the global news expose, they're not high qualified. Do they understand the literature, the terminology? Do they even think that we're human? It sounds like not. You know, they see our names and they don't see us. They don't put a face to our cases, and they don't understand the emotion and the devastation behind our experiences. They just don't.
Let me ask you, speaking about understanding the experiences, when you spoke with Carolyn from Global,
mm-hmm.
Did she seem empathetic to you?
She did. She was very determined to uncover the VISP program. So I am very appreciative of that.
See, the reason I ask that is because, I mean, these guys sat on this story for 4 years. They did nothing.
That's my concern.
Remember our conversation last time? I said, have you reached out to the media? You said, yes, they hung up on you. They never got back to you. And I've had many people.
Every single Global News, CTV, CBC, Vancouver Sun, you name it. I got a hold of everybody in 2023. Nobody would talk to me. except CJDC TV News in Fort St. John. And I said to them, I'm not talking to you if you're not going to talk about vaccine injury, because that's what this is about. And she nailed it. It was a small local news broadcaster here. Outside of that, so you're right. Like, do I appreciate that they're talking about it? Of course I do. Should they have actually listened to us 4 years ago? Absolutely. And Julie is fully aware. I mean, Brianne, close friend of ours, she was in the AstraZeneca clinical trial. There were like vital.
This whole thing was a clinical trial.
Well, there were vital safety signals, Shadoe, that were very obvious with all 4 vaccine manufacturers in the spring of 2021. These participants were reporting it to Peter Marks, FDA, CDC. They knew that they were causing severe neurological conditions. They did not report that to the public. We did not have informed consent. There was no informed consent. We did not have bodily autonomy with these mandates. So we fast forward to Canada at the tail end of 2021, and Trudeau decides that he's going to push even farther for these vaccine mandates, when all along there were significant information, clinical trial data withheld from the public. So yes, Global News, CBC, CTV, they should have been covering this 4 years ago.
They should have been curious. I mean, this is what,
yes,
Anita and I talked about last night. Generally speaking, like, she spent years in newsrooms, so did I.
Yeah.
And that's generally the mood in any newsroom. It's curiosity. How did that happen? You're
That's
telling
right.
me what? But in this case, oh no. They could not see it.
Shh, you can't say anything. So I'm in the appeals process now. So October, I had someone that was overseeing my case, and I finally got an appeals case manager. It took 6 months to get an appeals case manager. So I'm in the appeals process. They just emailed me. Now I need to update my providers and go through the exact same thing that Natalie was talking about. Just the hours that I have spent submitting documents. You can't submit them yourself. I wasn't allowed to. So I couldn't submit anything myself. I have all my medical records. I have binders and binders. Like, I'm talking 4-inch binders of research, peer-reviewed papers, all my medical records. It's disgusting when I look at how skinny my medical chart was before this.
Why don't they allow you to do it yourself?
They want it to come from the doctor's office. So I have to fill out a provider list. I have to update my new providers. I send it to them. They send that to the respective provider. The provider then has to submit the forms to your case manager. So imagine for Julie and I having to get that done with the US. Like, the amount of effort. And so when you say it's a broken system, it's not timely, it's not effective.
Well,
and
wait a minute. Hold on. When you say broken system, I say interesting, because do any of you get the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this system was set up to fail?
Yes, but I have hope for humanity. I mean, I do.
I know, so do I. But I mean,
but you're not wrong. I don't disagree with what you said. I don't. I mean, they're talking $50.6 million Xero received. 16 million was received by Vaccine Injured. The rest are administration. So I just ran the statistics. So I think you said 9 people. Just give me 1 second. I ran the stats. And so based on their article, it says VISP has approved 219 cases. And as of their article, they've received 3,073 claims. I ran the math. It's a 92.9% rejection rate. 92.9% rejection rate with that program.
and you know what's interesting about that is, like, how many claims did you say?
It was
3,000?
was approved 219 cases, 3,073 claims to date, 1,700 applicants still waiting for their cases to be reviewed and decided upon, which probably includes my appeals case as well.
And how many people, I wonder, just heard about this and go, I'm not even going to bother with this? Maybe
some
their
of them
injury is
didn't
not.
find out until it was too late.
Yeah, that's true
They couldn't
too.
apply in time.
Julie, have you been through the same kind of a thing?
Share your story.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit different. Ultimately, I was rejected as well. However, it was for a different reason. So in Canada, you have up to 3 years from the date of the vaccine to file for the vaccine injury support program. And so in my case, I put it off as long as I could because I got better the first time in 4 months. And so I had hoped that I was going to get better again. And I didn't realize until I talked to my Utah doctor after they had ran all of the medical testing and I had my follow-up appointment. And the follow-up appointment was on December 11th of 2024. And so at this point, I had 10 days to get an application in. And so, as I mentioned before, during that appointment with my Utah doctor, he told me point blank that my life was never going to be the same as before I took the vaccines. And like I said, of course, I told him, like, yeah, you're right, because I have some pretty cool friends now that I didn't have before. And then I talked to one of those friends, and that friend made it very clear to me that the reason that he was telling me that was that I needed to know that I qualified for compensation and I needed to get on that because they both knew that I only had 10 more days to get an application in. So after I had that conversation with both of them and I realized that they were right and I wasn't going to get better this time. I'm not going to get better. These conditions are permanent. And the definition of the Vaccine Injury Support Program is that your condition has to be permanent. It has to be severe and your injury has to be life-altering or resulted in death. So once I knew that I met those 3 criteria, I filled out the rest of the application form and I overnight shipped it. And when I got a response back in February of this year, so 2025, I was told that the reason they are rejecting my application is that it should have been based off of the date of my second dose. So they are trying to claim that I am past the 3-year deadline. Based
They're
off
they're
of
bullshitting you, Julie. They're doing
yeah,
everything they're lying. They're using
yeah. So
unbelievable.
they are trying to say that my application did not get there within 3 years. I have proof that it did, because I knew that we were probably going to have an issue with it being so close. And so not only did I overnight ship it, but I shipped it with proof of signature required. And so I have a signature from their staff that says that they received my application on December 20th, 2021. And so based off of the date of December 21st, which is when I received the 3rd dose, I am within that 3-year window. And so I have written a letter explaining that and appealing, because the only reason that we included the date of my second dose in the application is because that demonstrates a cause and effect in my case, because I reacted the same way twice, not just once. And so because I reacted the same way twice, we chose to include the date of my second dose to demonstrate that cause and effect. However, the Vaccine Injury Support Program is trying to use that against me.
Tell us about CanRise 19, please. Which one of you guys wants to talk about that?
Go for it, Julie.
Yeah, absolutely. So CanRise 19 is the Canadian affiliate of React 19. And so what we are doing is we are providing physical, emotional, and in the future, we hope to be providing financial support to Canadians who were injured by the COVID-19 vaccines. And so, as we kind of touched on earlier, we have launched with our support groups. So we are offering weekly support group meetings for individuals who are impacted by the vaccines. But in the long run, we really hope to mirror React 19 in the States here in Canada. Because
are you getting a
that's
lot of assistance? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you getting a lot of assistance from the React 19 people?
Significant.
Absolutely. They have been a huge support to us.
Joel and Bree they've been absolutely exceptional.
Yeah. And so for me, React 19 was the first time that I realized I wasn't alone and that I wasn't the only person out there like me. So I was able to participate in their pilot emotional support group, which is how I met these friends that I talk about. And so through that group, I met an amazing group of individuals that I call my best friends, period. Like, they're not just my injured best friends anymore. They are my best friends, period. And through that, I was able to become their support group coordinator. And then, like Michelle said, when her and I connected in late 2024, we expressed to them, like, hey, we want to do something in Canada. And they were super supportive of that. So,
are you getting a lot of traction? Is there
yeah, absolutely. Things are really starting to pick up.
And it was
and we're really,
it was important for us to Shadoe, like, for it to come from a scientific evidence-based perspective. So it's peer-reviewed literature. We aren't, Julie and I are and will be working towards our own peer-reviewed paper. Right now, we're not doing that, but it is like sourced, and React 19 we lean heavily on. The other important thing for CanRise 19 is CVIA, so that's COVID Vaccine Injury Alliance, is a global organization, and Canada, or CanRise 19, is a Canadian partner in that organization. And so I've sat on calls with UK, Germany, Japan, Argentina, Australia, and all of us are, this is happening globally, and we're sharing our experiences, we're sharing literature. Julie and I in Texas, we went down for the Follow the Silence documentary, and we contributed to a new study. So we had blood draws, and that went to Germany. And so we're now getting results back. So we are actually contributing to science, unbiased science. And so we're looking at antibodies, we're looking at immune response, we're looking at immune profiles. We're trying to figure out a true solution. And Julie and I know that there are solutions in the US. Canadians needed earlier intervention. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but we need research. And so it was really important that CanRise 19 was based in research. But React 19 has been absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, we have nothing but absolute praise for how they've helped us.
I'm hoping that more and more
that anyone else was out there, Shadoe. I mean, I had a handful of conversations with people, but until I met Bree, which just happened to be, I think I saw the same immunologist as her. I was alone, and it was really hard. Like, I've been ostracized. And when you talk about who's left, like, there's not a lot of people left. And that's really difficult when you are like immersed in the community like I was. The friends I have are extraordinary, and I'm so grateful for who's here and who's come. But I didn't have anyone, and I thought I was alone. And when I met Julie, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in Canada. And I messaged Bree, and I was like, do we have this type of organization in Canada where we can offer a medical care fund and whatnot? And so our website's launched, canrise19.com. There's a donate button. There's a clear disclaimer that says that we are not a nonprofit organization right now. You're welcome to donate if you'd like to. We will be hopefully registered as a nonprofit by mid-August. At that time, you can get tax receipts, and 100% of the money goes to the injured. Julie and I are volunteers. We have another volunteer. We are accepting volunteers. We do not get paid. This is our time, and we're happy to do it.
I'm happy to have all three of you on tonight, and I know that there's a few more who would like to come on and tell their stories, and I'm happy to have them on. We can do a part 2 of this next week if you like. I'm just wanting to get this news out to people in the hope that, there are people out there who are just like you were, Michelle and Julie and Natalie, months ago or a couple of years ago, where you thought you were alone and you didn't have anybody that you could talk to, you could lean on. And I'm sure there are people all across the country who were waiting for something like this or didn't know something like this existed. So That's part of what I'm supposed to be doing, is getting the word out for you, and I'm happy to do that. Thank you guys for joining the show tonight. Canrise19.com. Am I correct in saying that?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you again.
Thanks, Shadoe.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. We'll talk to you again. We're coming back in 30 seconds, guys. I have more for you. You know, it's difficult to hear those stories, but I think that it's important we get them out. And some people say, well, you know, Shadoe, it's old news. It's 3 years ago. It's 4 years ago. Time to move on. No. You guys were here for the extension last night on ShadowDavis.com. And I think it was on Telegram last night, too. Can't remember. We had Dr. Mike Yeadon. And no, according to him, there's more to come. And other doctors as well. They say there's much more to come. And we're not talking about another pandemic either. We're talking about some kind of time delay. You know what I'm talking about, right? So we do have some news of the day for you guys to check out here. Look at this. In the first 4 months of 2025, and this is something I was talking about maybe last week, Canada welcomed 817,000 new immigrants in the first 4 months of this year. This figure includes both permanent residents and those with temporary status like work and study permits. This high number has sparked debate and discussion about the impact of immigration on various aspects of Canadian society, including the housing market. 132,100 permanent residents were granted permanent residency during this period, 194,000 study permits, 491,400 work permits, including extensions, were finalized, including, in the last 10 years, 17,000 convicted criminals that Canada just let in. What does Pierre Poilievre think about this high immigration? Well, here he is talking about it last month.
We support a stronger border. We want severe limits on population growth to reverse the damage the Liberals did to our system. The population has been growing out of control. Our borders have been left wide open. This has caused the free flow of drugs, human trafficking, illegal migration, and much worse. And that is why we want a stronger border. We want to crack down on abuses in the immigration system, and we want to ensure that that any frauds in the refugee system are reversed. Those are the things we're looking at. But we're also going to study the bill carefully to make sure that, you know, long-standing Canadians who are following the law are not having their rights and freedoms violated. Thank you.
Long-standing Canadians. What does he mean by that? Does he mean old stock Canadians? Here he is again, last week at the Calgary Stampede.
We will put Canada first in everything that we do, and that includes immigration. Look, we're a welcoming country, but the latest news that the Liberals allowed 17,500 foreign criminals to enter our country by sponging their prior criminal records is just the latest example in the radical, Liberal, failed experiment with open borders. And Mark Carney refuses to deport any of these individuals, nor has he changed any of the radical immigration targets that Justin Trudeau left behind. Our housing, our health care, our jobs are overwhelmed. Our young people are cast aside while low-paid temporary foreign workers take their jobs. We must end the abuse in the temporary foreign worker program, the international student program, the refugee system, and we must restore an immigration system that puts our country and its people first. We reject the radical Century Initiative, which Liberals have endorsed, saying that they want to bring our population to 100 million people over this century. Look, we don't blame people for wanting to come here. Almost all of us trace our lineage back to immigrants, other than our First Peoples. But that immigration must be controlled. It must be in numbers that we can absorb. It must be the right people at the right pace that will allow us to succeed as Canadians and integrate and be one united country.
See, it sounds like he's trying to get rid of the multicultural facets of Canada. As Mark Carney says, Canada is not a melting pot, it's a mosaic. So that means you get black here, and you get yellow there, and you get red here, and you get brown there, and pink there. None of them really ever get together. They're just allowed to live in their own little silos, speak their own languages, exercise their own cultures, which is absolutely fine as long as they do it at home. Because some of these cultures involve big knives. Very, very big knives. Dangerous knives. And some of these cultures also involve some pretty horrible behavior. We've heard stories about that. Here's a random dude with more on the 817,000 immigrants story.
Your country going through an economic crisis, a housing crisis, a drug crisis, a crime crisis, and so much more, and your government decides, let's take in 817,000 new immigrants in the first 4 months of the year. That is 2.4 million new immigrants if it stays at that pace over the span of the entire year. While the country is already overpopulated for what we can actually handle, while people can't afford food, they can't afford to live, they can't buy a home, and all of these different issues, in the midst of all of that, the government says, let's take in all of these new people. Surely that'll be the solution. It's not like every single person in this country is already complaining about the immigration crisis, about how many immigrants are in the country. Let's take in even more. And you can't say anything about it, because if you do, of course, you're racist and you're bigoted and all of these things. Of course, they know exactly what they're doing. They're replacing every single person of this country. They know what they're doing. They're happy to do it. They'll do it with a smile. And they know that this benefits the government. This benefits corporations. This benefits every single person but the actual average population. That's who it doesn't benefit. And that's what they're trying to do. They're actively trying to ruin the lives of the native population of this country. And they're expecting to do it without anybody saying anything because they're too afraid to. This is ridiculous. And if people don't speak about it more, this country will be lost, as if it's not already, but it will be further lost. It will be lost to a point that people cannot even comprehend.
Let me ask you a question. I want you guys to write this down in the comments. I do look at the comments, you know. Some of you think I don't, but I do. Is Canada lost already? Not just the immigration, but all of these demonstrations, the two-tier policing, the LGBTQ nonsense, the climate change narrative, the debt, the housing crisis, the crime. Is our country gone permanently? Can we bring it back? Let me know what you think in the comments. I tell you, sometimes I wonder. The separation threats, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I believe that Alberta needs to leave. Alberta needs to get the hell out of this country. They gotta. And the sooner the better, because look at this. This is a Pew Research poll that was conducted, and the results came out this morning. So when asked, and this is Canadians and various other populations around the world, when asked which country is the most important ally to their own, many people around the world named the United States. This is the most common response in 12 of the 24 non-U.S. countries included in a new Pew Research Center survey. It's tied for the top response in 3 additional countries. So Where is the U.S. considered the most important ally, and where is it considered to be the greatest threat? Israel, of course. 95% of the people there say it's the most important ally. South Korea, 89%. Japan say 78%. The UK say 51%. Poland, Italy, Australia, India, Nigeria, Hungary. Canada, 55% of Canadians say that the United States is our most important ally, but 59% of Canadians say the United States is our greatest threat. 59% of Canadians say the United States is our greatest threat. Let that sink in, please. All right, let's finally get to the Epstein stuff, the Epstein memo. This came out just a little over a day ago. Joint memo from the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is the thing that everybody is up in arms about today. As part of our commitment to transparency, the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have conducted an exhaustive review of investigative holdings relating to Jeffrey Epstein. To ensure the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. The files relating to Epstein include a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. Teams of agents, analysts, attorneys, and privacy and civil liberties experts combed through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much information as possible to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of child pornography. The systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Consistent with prior disclosures, this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. Each suffered unique trauma. Sensitive information relating to these victims is intertwined throughout the materials. This includes specific details such as names, victim names and likenesses, physical descriptions, places of birth, associates, and employment history. One of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims. Perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. To that end, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein and ensured examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the FBI that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. After a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, August 10th, 2019. This conclusion is consistent with previous findings, including the August 19th, 2019 autopsy finding in the New York City office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the November 2019 position of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York in connection with the investigation of federal correctional officers responsible for guarding Epstein, and the June 2023 conclusion of the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General. Hang on, I've got some video I want to throw up right after this. The conclusion that Epstein died by suicide is further supported by video footage from the common area of the Special Housing Unit, which is missing a minute, where Epstein was housed at the time of his death. As DOJ's Inspector General explained in 2023, anyone entering or attempting to enter the tier where Epstein's cell was located from the SHU common area would have been captured by this footage, except for that missing minute. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that from the time Epstein was locked in his cell around 10:40 p.m., August 9th, 2019, until around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, nobody entered any of the tiers of the SHU. During this review, the FBI enhanced the relevant footage by increasing its contrast, balancing color, improving sharpness for greater clarity and viewability. So today, Donald Trump was holding a press conference in the White House. Pam Bondi happened to be there. Secretary Marco Rubio was there. Listen to Trump get very upset at a reporter's question.
It left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the death?
Yeah, sure. If
Pam, could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively, the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Sure you are. Of course you are. Here's Pam Bondi from Fox a few months ago.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Tucker Carlson was having a conversation with Sajid. Forget his last name. He used to have an independent media show. I'm not sure what it was called. I can't remember. The Awakening, something like that. Tucker doesn't know what to think either. Let's watch.
They're covering up. The DOJ, the current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes. Very serious crimes by their own description. Mm-hmm. Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
So there are really only two potential explanations that I can think of. Maybe you've got another. The first is that Trump is involved, that, Trump is on the list, that they've got tape of Trump doing something awful. I don't believe that for two reasons. One, I've talked to Trump about it a lot. And well, I know him. He's not that, for whatever his sins. I don't think he's that guy, actually. I don't think he likes creepy sex stuff. That's just my view. But more, I think, convincing is that this is all information that the Biden administration had. And if there was evidence that Trump had been involved in illegal sexual activity, you think the people who made up Russiagate wouldn't have leaked it?
Right.
Come on now. So the only other explanation that I can think of, again, maybe you've got another, is that intel services are at the very center of this story, U.S. and Israeli, and they're being protected. I think that seems like the most plausible.
That's the most obvious. I have a history of this. There have been multiple documented cases of pedophilia inside of the CIA perpetrated by CIA officers, documented that in many of those cases, I believe over a dozen cases, this was a BuzzFeed news piece years back, where the CIA specifically did not want to prosecute those individuals in federal court for fear that they would reveal sources and methods if they were pulled into open court. And they basically just made it go away. The only time they actually prosecuted somebody for child pornography was whenever he'd already being prosecuted for mishandling classified information.
Well, when they want to crush you, they put kiddie porn in your computers. Why don't have a computer? Don't own one.
Yeah, if you're an important person, you should be careful.
No computer in my house.
This is an important thing, though, is that we already have documented cases of them covering this up. I believe the CIA Inspector General, I forget the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, you wouldn't even believe the amount of child porn, that I've seen while I'm on this job.
Okay, so Tucker Carlson, and his name is Sager Angetti. Sager Angetti used to be on a show called Rising. They both believe that the DOJ and the FBI, Trump, the White House, they're all covering it up. What does Ben Shapiro think?
Answers. And the problem is this. People who never hedged their bets, people who never at any point suggested to you that they don't have data to back up the speculation, that the speculation was in and of itself the conclusion, that if you speculate without evidence that amounts to an actual conclusion to an investigation, they're going to be very upset today, because it turns out that the DOJ and the FBI have concluded that Epstein didn't have a client list and died by suicide, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Now, again, does this put to bed like all inquiries? Of course not. People can continue to speculate as much as they want. And I think there's still open questions here regarding how did Epstein make his money? Right? That's a very serious open question. And the speculation for a long time was he made his money from blackmail. But the DOJ and the FBI, again, run by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, are telling you, I'm not telling you, they're telling you, people who are members of the Trump administration, people you elected and put into these positions to get you the truth on this matter, are telling you that he didn't, in fact, he was not murdered, he did not keep a client list, and he did not blackmail powerful figures. Okay, right? That is the thing that they are saying, not I, they are saying this. If you're willing to throw that over and claim they're lying, then I'd like to see you present your evidence that they are in fact lying, because I know Dan. I don't think that Dan Bongino is lying to me. I know Kash Patel a little bit. I don't think Kash Patel is lying to me. I don't think these people are lying to me, which means that if somebody else continues to claim that they're lying, they ought to provide their evidence at this point. And now is the point at which the facts on the ground have changed. And so either you ought to shift your opinion based on the facts that have now emerged, or you ought to acknowledge that this was never a fact-based inquiry in the first place.
So if there was no client list, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for 20 years? Juliette Bryant was an Epstein Island victim. And here's what she says.
Wow, Donald Trump, America, government. Your government kidnapped me. You promised the Epstein list. Victims are being found dead. Hello. I mean, the whole reason you gained presidency, Trump, was because of promising the Epstein list. Are you as much of a liar as them? And thank goodness for Elon Musk for actually standing up for what's right. It's funny how only South Africans stand up, because where are the other 200 Epstein victims? Well, then maybe they're too frightened to speak out because of the American government. Well, I speak for all of them. I speak for all victims. How dare your government abuse, rape, and murder? We'll be coming for you. Don't you worry, government. You can sit there and pretend that Epstein didn't exist and that none of this happened. But guess what? We're not that fucking stupid. Don't make us any more angry, otherwise we will come and we will find you. How dare you?
She's not happy. Chris Sky weighed in on this today. Not necessarily on the Epstein thing, which we know what he probably thinks, but on Alex Jones. Because Alex Jones is running cover for the DOJ, for the FBI, and for Donald Trump. And by the way, there's some bad language in this 90-second clip.
Just how fucking stupid are MAGA. I just heard Alex Jones right now. Alex Jones, a man I used to respect since I was 14 years old, and recently, actually, not that recently, for a few years I was questioning his authenticity. But today, he just lost me forever, and I'm going to call out Alex Jones as a lying, cocksucking piece of shit right now. He literally just made a video where they are now saying, this is the new MAGA coping mechanism, that Trump is not releasing the Epstein files because he's using it to control the deep state and reverse blackmail them. Totally. That's why he's Israel's bitch completely and doing everything that they want, because he's secretly now blackmailing the deep state with the Epstein files. That's going to be the new Trump narrative for them to trust the plan. That Trump is now playing 75D chess with the Mossad, and Trump, all by himself, is really pulling the strings against the Mossad and everybody else. Alex Jones, you're so fucking full of shit, and I am sorry that I ever went on your show and gave you everybody the appearance of your legitimacy.
It's a cover-up. It's an obvious cover-up. We're going to go more into this in the extension in just a couple of minutes on ShadowDavis.com for you all-access Nighthawks. And again, you can join up. You can become an all-access member. You don't have to stay up late every night. I haven't got time for another hour of content. You can watch it whenever you want. You don't have to go searching for your own content for stuff that you want to see, but you don't know where to find. It will be on the website, ShadowDavis.com. Spelled just like it looks at the bottom of the screen. ShadowDavis.com. Pick up a membership today. We'd be happy to see you there. And don't forget either to go ahead and join the Shadow at Night community on Telegram. Here's Glenn Beck, and he's one of my faves. And he's not happy either.
If the jump in the tape wasn't incompetent enough for you, listen to this one. Jason is here with us. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Glenn. What a morning. Wow.
Mm-hmm. What a morning it is. Okay, so, Jason, what else have you found?
Okay, so the more and more we looked at this tape, I started looking. It was just weird because it looked like a janitor's closet. So door 46,
janitor's closet.
And you were like, shut up, this is not a janitor's closet. I don't know what this is. Well, I was like, I can tell you, there's a woman that looks like a janitor that comes out of supposedly the person, there's this cell that they're saying is his cell, which they're not, by the way. This was like people on social media were saying this was the cell. Is coming out with a trash can. So I looked around to see if there was any confirmation on what this cell was. And I found an OIG report from the Justice Department 2 years ago that shows the camera angle and the one camera that was actually working. So you can see the diagram, and I think we actually have it if you're watching this right now. There's a diagram that shows where this camera is. It shows where Epstein's cell is. And the big thing that stands out, Glenn, is this camera doesn't even have eyes on Epstein's cell at all. Like, not at all.
That's incredible.
4 different wings here. There is a service wing, and that's what we're looking at with that door 46. That's like a service entrance or staff entrance. Now, you can't see on the lower level Epstein cell at all. So this is what makes it look even crazier for that 1 minute that's missing. And I will say that, let me just say it this way. I've spent years and years and years looking at surveillance and security camera footage, as you know, in my previous job. I've never seen an over 1 minute jump right at a time that would be very, very I don't know, just convenient. I've never seen that before in
why
all
would
my
that-
years looking at these things.
There's no reason. Why do you say that minute would be convenient? You're just saying that 1 minute being gone is convenient. You're not saying that particular minute
It's
is
convenient
important. We don't.
in this entire time frame based off of this camera angle. So it's convenient, like, let's say 60 seconds would be great for someone walking across that lower level. 60 seconds would be perfect for if you wanted to like conceal the fact that someone walked across that area. That's why it would be convenient.
Here's why I didn't buy into this at first. Okay, 60 seconds to get in and open the door and then kill him and then leave. Okay, but look at the diagram. If you look at the diagram where the camera is, there is maybe a foot space where the camera is not able to see where there is a door from the staff area. Okay?
Are you looking at, because I think it's hard to tell from this, are we looking at, is this diagram the top floor or the bottom floor? Jason, do you have any idea?
So it looks like Epstein. So I think Epstein's cell is on the same, is on the top floor. Yeah. So the stairs would
These
be
are the upper floors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at where the staff area is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See the yellow triangle.
Yes.
And the red box where it's his cell. Okay. So there is one way out of the staff area, and it's right below the camera.
Like underneath the floor, essentially, of where the camera is.
Yeah, on the floor. If the camera's up on a ceiling, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the camera's the camera is
from above,
from
on
a
the
second
ceiling.
floor, shooting down, and you can what the evidence that they're basically proclaiming here, and this is true. You know what Jason's saying is true, that you can't see the door of the Epstein cell. What you can see is a common area that, in theory, you would need to cross to get to the cell. What you're saying, Glenn, is the camera doesn't actually show 100% of the potential paths to get there,
it
right?
doesn't.
Like you could if you cross right in front of the banister here on the bottom floor, there's no way
There's no way you're going to see.
Right.
Okay, so wait a minute. So I just want to make sure. We are talking about the same thing. If you look at the videotape, it's the white room downstairs, right? So it's where the garbage can is down there.
Below
so
that.
Epstein's room would be below the garbage can.
No, the Epstein's room, if you look out, if you the area that you can see, and I apologize for radio listeners here that aren't seeing this visual, but I want to make sure we get this right. There's an open area where the banister is like and it shows the common area behind it, right?
Okay.
If you go to the right side of the common area from our view, outside of the view to the right is where the entrance to the cell is, the stairs up to the cell.
So all you have to do, you don't have to cross the floor. Why do you have to cross the floor?
You could stay close to that wall.
You can go through the door. You can go through the door and see and just stay against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe, and Jason, maybe you know this, maybe it's explained somewhere else in the report, but like, is it possible that they're saying all the other entrances, like to get to that area, have cameras, and so they didn't see anybody walking into those areas? If that were true, of course you should release them.
Then why wouldn't you show the other?
Right. I mean,
this is not proof that anybody did anything.
No.
This is proof they are absent. Pam Bondi needs to be fired. Who is rolling this out? The little rascals? Panky, look, I got some videotape. What are you doing? This is ridiculous. This is such absolute incompetence.
Again, it doesn't prove that this, he was killed. However, it is the fact that they're releasing a video that has this many holes in it to a passing. Again, the person you're trying to make feel better about all of this is someone very interested in the detail of it, right? It's not someone who has a passing interest. You're not releasing this to some person who kind of knows who Jeffrey Epstein is. This is intentionally designed to try to push down what you're arguing is a conspiracy theory.
You're also, and you know what? I'm not arguing anything. I'm arguing this is incompetence.
Yes.
I'm not arguing that he killed himself or he didn't kill. I don't know. But this isn't helping. Not only are you saying, that these people have some interest in it. Well, these people are, interested in the details. No, you're releasing it to a bunch of people who many of them have the details, but many of them are hostile to what you're saying. So you better have a buttoned up case. You better not have anything that they find out later. Wait a minute. What?
Right.
Okay, so Pam Bondi, 6 months ago. Oh, we've got the files. We're going to release them. We just want to make sure that there's no names of any children or victims involved in any of this. And then months and months and months and months and months go by. Nothing. Kash Patel. Oh, yeah, we're on this. We're gonna reveal it all. Dan Bongino on his show. And I like Dan Bongino, but now he's a member of the FBI or the Secret Service, whichever. He's Kash Patel's deputy director, I think, of the FBI now. So he's not doing his show anymore. So he's not free to speak freely. And about a month ago, those two did a show. Not sure which one. I forget which one. Sean Ryan, maybe. And they said, no. Epstein killed himself. And when you saw, especially Bongino in that interview, it looked like somebody was standing just off camera holding a weapon at him. He looked sick saying that because all the years leading up to it, he was adamant that there was a cover-up going on, but now not. Isn't that interesting? What does Elon Musk say about this? And this was this afternoon about 1:30. How can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files? And get defensive about it, too. You saw the clip that I played for you a few minutes ago. All of this stuff going on, and you want to talk about this dirty scumbag Epstein. Like I said, we're going to go more into this in just a second on the extension, shadowdavis.com. Babylon B will leave you with a laugh. Bondi explains she was going to release the Epstein files, but then some pedophiles asked her not to. And that is it for the main show tonight, you guys. Wow, we went long, didn't we? About an hour and 40 minutes. I want to thank all the vaccine injured folks for coming on tonight. Really appreciate them taking the time to tell their stories and talk about the group Can Rise 19. If you want more information on that, canrise19.com. More coming up on the Epstein files and the extension in just a second. We'll be right there for you All Access Nighthawks. For the rest of you, love you all, appreciate you all. Catch you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, for another episode. Bye for now.